So I just want to dig further on what's going on with President Trump, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, Jeffrey Epstein, Virginia Giuffre, Prince Andrew. There's a lot of names involved in all of this, and Elon Musk as well. So let's start with Pam Bondi. I think Pam Bondi is likely to be reassigned first week of August. Matt Gaetz is the guy that President Trump wanted to be the Attorney General all along. And I think what's going to happen is she's going to be reassigned and Gaetz is going to take over. And what role will Pam Bondi have moving forward? I'm not sure, but you know, most people seem to be very upset with her. They seem to be supporting Dan Bongino more than her. They seem to be supporting Matt Gaetz. Now, as you know, Dan Bongino, he's very upset. And he's basically saying that it's either Bondi or it's me who needs to go. He wants to go back really to his podcasting because that's what he loves, but he wants to support President Donald Trump, as conservatives and stuff. But here's the rub, okay, with Bongino. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty disappointed in how this is all being handled because whether you're conservative, liberal, moderate, doesn't matter. This has all been mishandled. And even conservatives are not happy with the way this is going. I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. Is there a chance the accusations are actually true? Well, I understand what people are saying. Yes, anybody can accuse anybody of anything. And with what Donald Trump has gone through and all the attacks against him over all the years, you got to remember everything that happened his first presidency after they didn't think he'd win and everything that's happened. I mean, he was almost murdered multiple times going right into the presidential election. So, and I talked about that. I talked about how Trump knew something was going to happen. That's why he had Secret Service there in Butler, Pennsylvania for the very first time. Secret Service themselves knew that there was going to be an attack 10 days before, and they allowed it to happen with Butler, Pennsylvania police when Matthew Thomas Crooks climbed on top of the AGR building with an AGR 15, I believe it was. And the police, Butler police, were just standing there watching him crawl up on that roof of the AGR building with that semi automatic rifle. So it's very weird. The government's been infiltrated. The FBI has always been pure evil. I talked about that, how the FBI was meeting with Crooks at his workplace and his parents' house, and they were both counselors. But I don't want to make this all about the Butler shooting. I want to make this about what's really going on with the accusations on Donald Trump. Are they true? This Katie Johnson, it's a woman who is using a fake alias and a wig on her head. And I understand, I've spoken to some people, my friends who are conservative like me, and they said, well, if you're using a fake name and you're hiding your appearance, it does discredit you to some extent. How much stock can we put into it? Well, you got to understand Virginia Giuffre, that was the woman who was murdered in 2 attempts. She was hit by the school bus going 72 miles an hour in Australia with kids on board, and that bus wasn't even turning where it was supposed to go. And she was almost taken out. She was in a hospital, and then she went back to her family farm after she recovered. And not long after that, about a couple months after the bus accident, Virginia Giuffre was murdered on her family farm, and it was called a suicide. But no explanation was ever given on how she actually died. We know she was murdered. And she expected this to happen. She was coming out on social media saying, hey, you know what? In case something happens to me, she's the one who was coming out. Her accusations were not against Donald Trump, okay? Virginia Giuffre was saying that Jeffrey Epstein was pimping her out to Prince Andrew and other massage therapists. Well, I came across an Epstein client list yesterday, even though the Trump administration is now saying that no such lists exists. When Pam Bondi came out in February and said, oh yeah, we've got the flight logs, here they are, and they'll be released in 3 phases. Well, if you're going to release something in 3 phases, that means it's got to be pretty big, right? But they never came out, and now the Trump administration is just saying they don't exist. And where Dan Bongino comes into all of this, as deputy director, I believe, of the FBI, he's largely responsible. I'm not saying he's the one who did this, but his name is on it. He's largely responsible for the video. They came out and released a video saying this proves that Jeffrey Epstein, over the night of August 9th going into August 10th, was not murdered in his prison cell. We have to understand the situation here. So Jeffrey Epstein goes into a prison cell August 9th, right? He's not in there very long. He's in there from August 9th. He goes in roughly about the 10 o'clock hour at night. And then all of a sudden, after midnight, supposedly, he commits suicide by hanging himself. But you got to understand, you really got to question things and look at things with an analytical eye. When they put that video out, Wired magazine, got the dog barking over here. I don't know what he hears, but Wired magazine challenged the FBI's release of that video and said that it was stitched together, that a middle portion of the video was just gone. And that would suggest that, well, maybe somebody else entered that prison cell. Now, how many minutes were gone, I don't know. It opens up the possibility of two things. Either, one, Jeffrey Epstein was most likely either murdered or he was replaced. And my theory all along was that he was replaced because when this broke in 2018, there were people coming out and saying that the guy laying down, the ears looked different. The earlobes were connected before and then they weren't. And then also that it just didn't really 100% look like Jeffrey Epstein, that really maybe he was taken and put underground. Same kind of thing with Michael Jackson. You never saw the body of Michael Jackson. Pictures weren't taken of the dead body, but they said that, he was on drugs and he committed suicide and overdosed, but there was video leaks of him getting off an ambulance the day he was announced dead and going somewhere probably underground. He could still be alive today. There's a lot of evil that transpired with Michael Jackson, and I'm not getting into that. That's a story for another day, but you have to ask yourself, these guys that have been in these high positions, your celebrities, look at Jeffrey Epstein, for instance. Do you really think that this was Jeffrey Epstein just doing all of this? Do you think that Jeffrey Epstein was just doing this in secret and all these things like the P. Diddy scandal? Like it's one guy doing all this and getting away with it? Yeah, they came out and said he wasn't guilty, but everybody and their brother knows Sean Combs was guilty. There's no doubt about it. And it's a corrupt justice system on a lot of levels. But Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just one guy as a figurehead doing all this and running around with celebrities and politicians. And I mean, look at what happened with Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrew. So Virginia Giuffre is murdered. It's being called a suicide, but now Prince Andrew is now acquitted of all charges after she's murdered. Look at the timing of it. Prince Andrew, that whole family, there's not a drop of real royal blood in it. All the way up from Queen Elizabeth on down. That was stolen. It's not real royal blood. There was a real royal family. They were taken out, in the 1500s or something? Or a long time ago, hundreds of years ago. And they were replaced by this, and some people come out and say Queen Elizabeth was a shape-shifting reptilian. Could be. I'm not saying that's not true. We may never 100% know, but regardless of whether that's true or it isn't, it's not a real royal family. And when you look at the things that have been done with Prince Andrew now being acquitted on these charges, yet Virginia Giuffre came out and said multiple times that Prince Andrew had sex with her, raped her. And now the accusations by this Katie Johnson are that Donald Trump popped her cherry. And she was told, well, at least it wasn't done by a pimply-faced 14-year-old, and that, you should feel proud that it was Donald Trump. And that apparently he got her to give him a hand job, and they said, this Katie Johnson saying, well, no, President Trump requires a glove and all this stuff. Well, he wasn't president at that time, obviously. He wasn't even in politics, but that he requires a glove. Now, I'm not going to get any more into detail than that, but that's what she's saying. If you look her up on TikTok and you look at what she's saying, that's essentially it. So are the accusations true, or are people just trying to drag him down like everybody else has been for the last several years? I would wager to believe that they are true. And if that's the case, then what does it mean? It means that all your presidential people in the last, decade plus have sexual misconduct and allegations against them? Because if that's true, then that would make President Trump a pedophile, raping a 13-year-old and telling her apparently that it reminds him of his daughter, who was 13 at the time. And then you go back to Joe Biden, who was sniffing girls' hair on television multiple times. And then if you go back to the diary that was sealed, written by his daughter, Joe Biden's daughter, you don't hear much about his daughter. She came out and wrote that Joe Biden had a sexual encounter with her in the shower once or twice, and that apparently he probably raped her. I don't know. I mean, that's sick to even think that he's raping his own daughter in the shower, but she came out and wrote about it in a diary, and then all of a sudden the diary got sealed. People don't really hear much about these things. So there you have that. What else happened with Joe Biden in the years? I don't know. I'm sure there was probably more. And then you go back before Joe Biden, and who did you have? You had Barack Hussein Obama. And I've gone on and talked about him multiple times. He lied about his own name. It was really Barry Soetoro, as unveiled by Candace Owens on her channel. And he lied about his country of origin. He was really born in Kenya. But the mainstream media is going to say he was born in Hawaii. It's not true. He's actually the grandson of Adolf Hitler, and people don't realize that. As was Theresa May, was the granddaughter of Adolf Hitler. People don't realize that. She was in the United Kingdom for a long period of time. And he lied about his sexual orientation, and his spouse was really a man, and a lot of people just refuse to believe that. They just refuse to believe that Barack Obama is really married to a man by the name of Michael LaVaughn Robinson. People will come out and say, "Oh no, I've seen the pictures of Michelle Obama when she was younger," but it's not true. It's a big cover-up. You know, and if people are trying to go after Donald Trump for his past, which I support none of that if it's true, if the accusations do come out, and I think over time, I think these accusations are going to pick up steam. I really do. You know, I think that, because I heard this 4 years ago when I was in the Army, and my Jamaican friend would tell me my hero Trump was a pedophile and raped a 13-year-old girl. And, you know, I was like the rest of y'all. I didn't want to believe it. You know, I said, I think these are just accusations. But then we hear that maybe she was silenced right before he was president in 2016. You know, I don't know. I do know that a lot of prominent people get away with a lot of bad things. You know, Trump is running the country great right now. The Democrats will say, well, what is he doing? He's doing a lot. The illegal immigrants are being shipped out in record numbers. You've got Alligator Alcatraz right now. That's just to start things off. So he's doing a great job with the country. But it would be a big asterisk, right? It would be like Mark McGwire winning the home run record, hitting what, 73 home runs in 2001 or whenever that was, or 1999 actually. I can't remember the year for sure, but him and Sammy Sosa going back and forth, and here he is on steroids, performance-enhancing drugs. Yes, he did it, but big asterisk. Well, you know, if Trump's running the country great, but that stuff comes out as being true, that would be a stain. It would be a huge asterisk. So people are saying, well, don't just look at the island of Jeffrey Epstein. Look at his New York mansion. I understand that, and that's a very legitimate point. It is. You know, the New York mansion is where a lot of things did happen. And I think that's going to come out, and that's true. You know, but when you look at the island, it doesn't mean stop talking about the island. The island is where kids disappeared. They were raped, sodomized, murdered, and most of them never came back off that island. And when you got the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, where he goes, "I'm sorry, Wilson," and puts the bloody hand on the volleyball, you know, that's what I believe, that Tom Hanks raped and murdered a young boy by the name of Wilson. You know, and then you go on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and it's really hard to find this now. I saw it a few years ago. David Spade would make a guest appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and holding up a little 3x5 inch note card saying, "Where's Tom?" And Oprah Winfrey goes on as a guest of the Ellen DeGeneres show, and you can see on her home, I guess, in Oprah Winfrey, there's a pepperoni pizza clock and stuff, and she's got that Gayle King on there, I believe. All these people are extremely evil people. They're all in collaboration. The liberals don't want to believe that Oprah's raping babies and that they're being harvested for adrenochrome. Like, this is hard hitting stuff that most of your mainstream people don't want to believe because it's just so out there and it's just so far fetched. But is it true? I would argue that almost 100% of it's probably true. So, do you continue to dig? Do you continue to give credence to this stuff? Or do you just get so busy in your life that you don't care about it and you move on to the next thing and you just let stuff like this happen? It's up to you. But I'm not going to stop digging on it. I'm going to keep entertaining this stuff because I think it's true. And I mean, even if you look at past presidents, I didn't even go far enough back. You had Richard Nixon in the Watergate scandal, and then they called him Tricky Dick. You had Bill Clinton with the Monica Lewinsky affair, cheating on his wife. Does it ever stop? Do we ever really get good presidents? We had John Fitzgerald Kennedy, JFK, and he was shot in the head, murdered, because he wanted to come out about the truth. Trump said that he would come out about the aliens. He said he would come out about the Epstein stuff. Well, where is it? We're not hearing anything about aliens. So they're all compromised, guys. They're all biting their tongues and not coming out about the real truth on everything. And then here we are in 2025 with all the stuff that's happening right now with our weather and tsunamis and earthquakes and what I think is the approach of this big planet coming on. But not a lot of people entertain all the stuff, the conspiracy stuff, because they're just so wrapped up in the day-to-day lives. So I don't know, but with Virginia Giuffre being taken out, I can understand why this Katie Johnson, which isn't her real name, is going by a fake name and is putting a wig on her head. Because would you want to come out with these accusations and die? No, because that's what's happening, though. They're taking them all out. So what do you do? So that's all I've really got. I just wanted to dig harder on this. One final note, Elon Musk, like I keep saying, this is not going in a good direction with him forming the America Party, because now he's throwing everything at he's throwing the kitchen sink at Donald Trump, and he wants people to follow him. But that will be a mistake, because Elon Musk is not a guy that deserves to be followed. He's not. Enough people already dislike this man the way it is. He's very greedy. He's the richest man in the world, yet he still wants everybody to buy an electric car. He's only out for himself. He's got these rockets and everything. I mean, when is it going to stop? It's like Bill Gates. Like, you're already the richest man in the world or one of the top 3. When is enough enough? You see the same thing with Mr. Beast, the YouTube guy. And then he keeps putting his products out there and trying to build his wealth and build it up higher and higher. It's like, when's enough enough, guys? Like, you're already rich. Like, what more do you want? Why don't these people, like, help people? But Bill Gates is going to come out and say, oh yeah, I'm the world's biggest philanthropist. Well, I'm not even going to talk anymore about him. It's just going to make me mad. But I know you guys agree with most of what we're saying here. You know the truth that's coming out. It's like Dana Scully said on the X-Files. The truth is out there. You just have to know where to look for it. I'll leave you with that. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning. Thanks for subscribing and supporting this channel. Right now, it's still non-monetizing. One day it might get there. I appreciate your guys' support. Thank you for the new subscribers that are on this channel. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep talking about what I think is the truth, and let's see what happens. Let's see what comes out. But I do expect Matt Gaetz to take over first week of August for Pam Bondi, and I don't think she'll be like completely fired from the Trump administration. I think she'll probably be reassigned. Let's see what happens. Let's see if I'm right. I'm leaning on some pretty good sources. I talk to some good people in the know in my local community, and these guys aren't all stupid. They know bits and pieces about what they're talking about. So hang in there. Keep fighting for truth and justice. Keep living for Jesus Christ. I love you guys. I'm here for you. If you have any prayer requests, put them down. I'll try to pray for you. I'll try to find that time. So that's all I got, guys. Thanks as always, and Godspeed until next time.